In this video, I'm going to show you how to crush the London system as black once and for all using Gukesh D's absolute favorite way to fight this opening as black. All right, in the game, white opens one knight to f3, and I have to admit, white was a very, very good London system player in this video, and he really gave me a run for my money. All right, knight f3, d5, d4, knight f6, and bishop f4. Kind of a weird way to achieve the London. So white here already showing some flair, some pizzazz, some mojo here. All right, c5, e3, and then e6. This is the system I recommend for black players. In my opinion, this is the most solid and strongest way to fight the London. Now, the main idea behind this move right here, we are going c5 in the spirit of the Queen's Gambit opening. We also go e6, setting up bishop to d6 ideas, challenging white's dark squared bishop. And that is the entire idea here. That bishop is just way too strong. It cannot be left alive. We're going for a fast bishop d6, challenging it and trying to fight that way. Now, white here has a few different ideas. c3 is probably the most common move I see nowadays at the amateur level, but instead, white goes for this very, very tricky idea of knight b d2. Now, this is how already I know. I mean, starting with knight f3, going for the London, and then playing knight b d2. White is showing he is not to be messed around with. This guy knows opening theory, but so do I. Queen b6, targeting the pawn on b2. Now, this is one of the key ideas here. If white goes knight b d2 in this variation of London, you go queen b6. On the other hand, if white goes c3, then you don't go queen b6, and here's the reason why. If white goes c3, he's giving the queen access to these squares here. Therefore, if black goes queen b6, white goes queen c2 or queen b3, and white is doing fine, and white is arguably a little bit better. So instead, after c3, you go bishop d6. On the other hand, if white goes knight b d2, then we go queen b6, as the drawback of this move instead of c3 is the queen does not have access to these squares right here. Therefore, the threat on the pawn on b2 is very, very real. Now, white goes d takes c5. And here, I really haven't faced this variation as black in a long time. The strongest move here for black is queen takes b2, and this line is thought to be very good for black. Already, black is better according to the engine, but instead here, I kind of chickened out and went bishop takes c5. Now, this move right here is just a little more passive. All right, we have rook b1, defending b2, solid idea. Castles, bishop b2, knight c6, and castles. Now here, both sides have castled. Both sides have played their main moves here, and black is doing perfectly fine. Black's castle, he's got a good bishop. He's got a 2 versus 1 pawn majority in the center. Black's already at least equal here. I've already neutralized white's London, but unfortunately for me, I don't find the right follow-up. Now, white's threat here is actually b4. The point being, if I waste a move, as I did in the game, I went h6, white can go b4 as he did in the game. And this move is actually quite strong. The idea behind it, if I take the pawn, I lose to, say, a3. White attacks the pin piece. I can't move it, as then I would lose the queen like, say, this. If I drop back, white takes the queen, and it is game over on the spot. So that would win a piece. So I can't take the pawn. The pawn is tactically poisoned due to the placement of the queen. Therefore, I have to drop back, bishop e7. But now white has this kind of awkward space advantage on the queen side, and white continues with another very strong move, c4, in the spirit of the Queen's Gambit. And what do I do here? Well, it turns out the only good way to proceed here as black is knight to h5, chasing this bishop, if I can draw arrows correctly, like a third grader here, chasing this bishop, and from there, black's doing relatively okay. But instead, I take on c4, white takes back, he hits my queen, I drop back, then white goes a3, and suddenly, we have this very symmetrical pawn structure here, both sides having pawns on the queen side and the king side, but white has the extra space advantage here, and beyond that, his bishops are very well placed. And suddenly, I'm getting sort of a bad version of a 5 bishop f4 Queen's Gambit declined. If you know, you know. This is basically a dream scenario for white in that variation. White's got everything he could want. I'm passive. I still can't develop and so on. And even if I trade queens here with, say, queen takes d1, white takes back, and even the endgame, white has a tremendous amount of pressure. Now, what do I do here? I go knight h5. The right idea, just not the right time to do it, because here white has bishop d6, infiltrating on the weak square. So I played the opening phase well, but as soon as the middle game started, I screwed it up. What can I say? Still improving, still learning. All right. I admit here, that was a bad idea. I dropped back, knight f6. Sometimes it is good to admit your failures. And here, white goes h3, guarding g4 ideas. Instead, turns out b5 right away is quite strong. The idea being something like b5, knight b8, bishop takes, queen d6, white infiltrates, and white's got a lot of pressure. And if I trade queens, the knight takes, the knight hits b7, c8, and so on, and white's got a lot of pressure here. So that was perhaps the strongest way to go. Instead, h3, not terrible. Now here, what I should be doing, turns out, is bishop takes, knight d5, centralizing my knight. Instead, I go b6. My idea is, in this scenario, I have to develop. Sooner or later, I have to get my pieces out to decent squares. My idea is bishop b7 and rook c8, kind of a typical developing scheme for black in these queen's gambit structures. Now here, white takes on e7, I take back, and then white goes queen to b3, developing his queen, and finally connecting those big bad rooks on the first rank. Now we have bishop b7, continuing my plan. I'm still hanging in there so far. Rook fd1, rook fd8, a4, and here I spot a simple tactic. This move a4, white is sort of overreaching a little bit. So far, so good. White's a little bit better. I am fighting back. I am slowly trying to equalize in this queen's gambit decline style structure. But this move a4, it's very ambitious. It's ambitious because white's potentially going a5 or b5. But on the other hand, it severely weakens this square right here. This pawn is not being supported by any other pawn. And here I find a way to potentially fight back a little bit, potentially ask some questions. I take the rook on d1. Rook takes d1. What's my idea? Well, it's very simple. If white takes back with the rook, then I win this pawn. And if white takes back with the bishop, then I go perhaps rook to d8, trying to potentially infiltrate somewhere on these files and so on. So, I'm getting a little bit of some play here. And white, sure enough, despite playing actually a really phenomenal game. This guy, Huner Puster, this German guy, I'm technically German myself, not from Germany, but my great ancestors are from Germany. So my fellow German chess player here, he's played a phenomenal London opening so far. Really, really good stuff. This guy, I can tell, is going places in chess. But here, he takes the rook with the rook, and he just gives up the pawn. I take, white takes, I take, and suddenly, after the really great opening, I just take over in the endgame, being up a pawn. And from here, knight d6, attacks the bishop, bishop a6, we trade bishops. And as more and more pieces come off the board, this outside extra pawn, which will soon become a pass pawn, is going to be more and more important. So, knight b5, knight c5, rook d4, king to f8, knight e5, knight b3 attacks the rook on the d4 square, and some more moves. And here, white starts to try to press a little bit on the king side. It's kind of a weird idea. White's best plan here is going to be potentially g3 and h4. That is sort of your typical defensive posture when you're defending, and white is certainly defending here. Instead, f4. That is more a move you make when you're the aggressor, and the computer doesn't like it one bit. We have a3, knight c3, rook d8, king f2, rook d2, hits the king, king f3. We do a little dance here, and white goes g4. Now, again, this move g4 is... you would typically play it when you're the aggressor, when you're playing for a win. Instead, g3, h4 is more of a defensive setup, as eventually if black goes g4, then you have all these trades and white kind of liquidates. So that g3, h4 setup is better if you're defending. Likewise, g6, h5. But if you're attacking, then you want to push g5 or g4 typically. All right, g4, g5, f takes, h takes. And I quite like this development. The idea being, if I can speak some proper English words here, is that this pawn on h3 is going to be a little bit vulnerable, which that may be the second weakness I need to win the game. There's this principle of two weaknesses in the endgame. If you want to win the game, you typically need to have two different weak points in the opponent's camp that you can attack. For example, here, I'm attacking with this pawn. That's sort of a strength. But I can also target this pawn on a3 later. So that might be my two weaknesses. All right. King g3, rook d2. Good move. h4. I take, and then rook to g2. Now, this move, not the best per se. It turns out endgames are tough. Turns out rook h2 and then all the way over to c2 is the right idea. Instead, rook g2, white goes g5, I drop back, we have some trades, rook c8, king e7, and here again, as more and more pieces come off the board, I'm going to do better and better. All right, white, rook to a8, he plays in the game, a good move, targeting this pawn, and I calculate, wait a minute, this pawn is supported by the knight, what if I just go a5? And yes, my pawns are temporarily immobilized, but on the other hand, white's got all these weak pawns. And if I can just defend this pawn, then everything is defended. And meanwhile, I can just shark around and attack anything I want. And it turns out it does work out in the game. Rook a7, rook c2 hits the knight, knight e4, rook c4 hits the knight and the pawn. And here, white just makes a weird blunder. I'm going to be honest. g6. I take the knight and white resigns. So really kind of a good opening, kind of a weak middle game, but then very strong late middle game into the end game on my part. So let's go back and really look at this game one more time from the opening perspective. If you want to crush the London, my favorite way to fight the London is this opening where you go c5, or actually you can also, by the way, go e6 then c5. Gukesh sometimes does that as well. They're both kind of the same. So c5, then e6, and then if white goes c3, I go bishop d6, and if white goes knight bd2 as he did in the game, then the move is queen b6, pressuring the pawn. And very importantly, if, for example, if white goes, say, rook to b1, then what you can do here as black is just bishop d6. And if white takes, you take back. Now, you may be wondering, what is the benefit of going queen b6, forcing rook b1, then going bishop d6, and trading on d6? Well, the benefit of this, the rook is potentially misplaced on b1. First of all, white obviously cannot castle queenside. Second of all, if white ever goes, say, a4, a5, that pawn could be a little more vulnerable, and going a4, a5 is one of white's key ideas in the London. So, overall, this move, queen b6, kind of shuts down a lot of white's tries for an edge here. Now, fortunately for white, good for him, he takes on c5. I get thrown off my game. I should have captured on b2. That is a story for another video. And then we have this kind of middle game-ish position emerge where I simply don't understand the right idea immediately. The right idea here is going to be a5, clamping down on b4, and knight h5 ideas. But I miss it a little bit, and I get into a little bit of trouble. But overall, long story short, this is like hands down the simplest, easiest way to fight the London. I'm shocked more people don't play this as black. It is just so solid. There's no weaknesses. You challenge the bishop, you get it off the board ASAP, and there isn't a whole lot white can do about it. Honestly, this setup here by black pretty much shuts down the London permanently in terms of it being any real way to fight for an edge. There's a reason Gukesh D and all the top guys these days play, not all the top guys, but a lot of the top grandmasters play this opening as black versus the London. It's so safe, so solid. According to the engine, black here already already 0.00, already fine as black. So it's just a great system. So anyways, if you struggle with the London as black, I'm happy to help you out. Just hit me up in my school community. The link is down below in the description for the video. Just hit me up there. Just tell me, you want to destroy the London. I'm happy to do it. Trust me, nothing would bring me more joy than helping anyone in the chess world demolish the London opening, because this opening is just, it's one of those openings where white can be such an average, mediocre player and play really, really well just by mastering the London. And it's so hard to play against. Now, this guy I played in this game is not mediocre. He's actually quite a good player. So he's the rare London player who actually seems to be decent at chess outside of the London opening. But anyways, yeah, hit me up. I'll be happy to show you how it's done, show you how to destroy the London. So anyways, it's all for today. Hope you enjoyed the video. And as always, I wish you the best of luck in your chess improvement journey in 2025 and beyond. And I'll see you in the next video.